In the heart of the dense woods, where the ancient trees stood tall and imposing, their gnarled branches entwined in a macabre dance, there lay an old, forgotten tunnel. The Tunnel of Terror, as it was ominously called by those who dared speak of it, was a relic of a bygone era, a vestige of a time when its purpose was known to all. But now, it stood in eerie silence, its mouth gaping wide like the maw of some ancient beast, waiting to swallow the unwary whole. This tunnel, a dark and shadowy passage that had seen countless seasons come and go, had become more than just a forgotten landmark. It had become a living embodiment of fear. The stories that had been passed down from generation to generation painted a chilling portrait of the tunnel's history. They spoke of desperate souls who had ventured into its depths, never to return, their fates forever intertwined with the enigmatic darkness that dwelled within. The locals, wise in their caution, had long shunned the tunnel and the twisted path that led to it. They spoke of inexplicable phenomena that occurred near its entrance, tales of spectral apparitions that wandered the nearby woods, their mournful cries carried by the wind. The very air around the tunnel seemed to thicken with an aura of dread, as if an ancient curse had seeped into the very earth upon which it was built. As the years wore on, the tunnel's legend grew, its reputation morphing from a mere cautionary tale into a force that held the villagers in its grip. Children dared each other to approach its mouth during the light of day, their nervous giggles masking the unease that gnawed at their hearts. Even the bravest souls among them, those who scoffed at superstition, couldn't deny the shiver that crawled up their spine whenever their gaze fell upon the tunnel's entrance. And so, the Tunnel of Terror stood, a silent sentinel to a past long forgotten, its secrets buried within its suffocating darkness. The villagers continued to pass down the stories, a chilling inheritance that served as a reminder of the thin boundary between the known and the unknowable, the living and the spectral. The path to the tunnel remained overgrown with nature's attempts to reclaim it, a final barrier between the world of the living and the mysteries that lay beyond. Little did the villagers know that soon, a group of daring adventurers would come to test the limits of their fears, and in doing so, awaken the slumbering malevolence that had lain dormant within the tunnel's depths for far too long. Despite the foreboding tales whispered among the villagers, a disparate group of curious adventurers, their personalities as varied as the colors of autumn leaves, united in their shared determination to unravel the enigma of the Tunnel of Terror. Among them were brave souls who relished the thrill of the unknown, skeptics who scoffed at the notion of curses, and those who sought to prove their mettle against the backdrop of chilling legends. Gathered on the outskirts of the village, they stood beneath the canopy of trees that seemed to lean inwards, as if conspiring to dissuade them from their perilous venture. Their torches flickered in the gathering dusk, casting dancing shadows upon their faces, which held a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Each member of the group had their own reasons for stepping onto this ominous path, yet collectively, they formed an alliance of recklessness, determined to defy the whispers that echoed in their ears. With flashlights clasped tightly in their hands and skepticism etched upon their faces, the group ventured into the woods, their footsteps stirring the fallen leaves beneath them. The forest, usually alive with the songs of birds and the rustling of small creatures, now seemed to hold its breath, a palpable hush settling over the land as if nature itself recognized the gravity of their undertaking. As they approached the tunnel's yawning entrance, the air grew icy, sending a shiver down their spines that was impossible to ignore. The tunnel's mouth loomed before them, an abyss that seemed to swallow the very essence of light. The adventurers exchanged glances, an unspoken pact forming between them as they steeled themselves for what lay ahead. With cautious steps, they crossed the threshold into the tunnel, their flashlights piercing the inky darkness with beams of light that danced along the walls like phantoms. The air inside was heavy with the scent of dampness and decay, a reminder of the passage of time and the toll it had taken on the abandoned passageway. The group pressed on, their footsteps echoing through the tunnel's confines, each sound magnified by the oppressive silence that surrounded them. The whispers, the fabled voices that were said to haunt the tunnel's depths, teased at the edge of their senses, like distant echoes carried on a breeze. A skeptical chuckle here, a nervous glance there. Their bravado began to waver, the skepticism giving way to an unspoken unease that settled like a weight upon their shoulders. It wasn't long before their flashlights began to flicker intermittently, casting erratic shadows that seemed to dance in time with their racing hearts. The brave faces they had put on for each other now revealed hints of doubt and vulnerability. They shared furtive glances, seeking reassurance from one another, as if hoping to find a shred of normalcy in the midst of the growing strangeness that enveloped them. Yet, despite the mounting tension, a spark of determination burned within each of them, pushing them deeper into the tunnel's depths. They were resolute in their quest to unravel the truth, to confront the legends that had haunted their thoughts and challenge the darkness that clung to the walls like a living entity. The tunnel, a threshold between the mundane and the mysterious, had ensnared their curiosity, and they were determined to emerge on the other side, victorious in their pursuit of answers. As the intrepid adventurers ventured deeper into the tunnel of terror, the atmosphere underwent a chilling transformation, becoming increasingly suffused with an otherworldly energy that seemed to coil around them like a serpent of dread. The walls, once merely remnants of a forgotten era, now took on an ominous quality, their weathered surfaces giving off an almost malevolent aura that sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to gaze upon them. The beams of their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing intricate carvings etched into the stone walls, strange symbols, and cryptic runes that seemed to pulsate with an eerie glow, as if imbued with a sinister life of their own. The air grew thicker, charged with an electric tension that made each breath feel like a laborious effort. The adventurers exchanged wary glances, their hearts pounding in rhythm with the echoing footsteps that reverberated around them. Whispers, once distant and indistinct, now swirled around them like an ethereal symphony of voices that seemed to come from all directions. Words danced on the edge of comprehension, snippets of sentences that tantalized their senses yet eluded their understanding. It was as if the very walls had absorbed the tales of those who had entered before, replaying their stories in a haunting loop that blurred the lines between past and present. Their flashlights continued to flicker, their wavering beams casting unsettling shadows that contorted and elongated like the limbs of spectral beings. Each step forward felt like a descent into an abyss of the mind, where reality and imagination merged into a nightmarish tapestry of sensations. The air itself seemed to thicken with every passing moment, as if the tunnel was drawing them further into its grasp, ensnaring their very souls. Time became an elusive concept, warping and distorting as they pressed on, their journey both a fleeting moment and an endless eternity. Their senses played tricks on them, fleeting glimpses of movement at the edge of their vision, the sensation of cold fingers brushing against their skin, and the uncanny feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. Skepticism eroded, replaced by an all-encompassing dread that settled like a heavy fog over their minds. The adventurers' once confident strides had given way to hesitant steps, their movements hesitant and uncertain as they navigated the increasingly bewildering terrain. Their voices, once marked by skepticism and bravado, were now hushed and tinged with a note of desperation. They spoke in hushed tones, as if afraid that the very walls could hear and twist their words into something malevolent. The tunnel's darkness seemed to seep into their very thoughts, fanning the flames of paranoia and uncertainty. They questioned their own perceptions, their grasp on reality slipping through their fingers like grains of sand. The whispers grew louder, the disjointed words forming a symphony of madness that threatened to drown out all reason. Despite the overwhelming fear that clawed at their minds, an unrelenting determination pushed them forward, compelling them to uncover the truth that lay hidden within the heart of the tunnel. Their resolve became a lifeline in the face of the abyss, a beacon of hope that pierced the suffocating darkness and guided them through the labyrinthine corridors of the unknown. The tunnel, a conduit between the tangible and the intangible, had become a crucible of their fears and a crucible of their wills, where they would either emerge victorious or succumb to the terrors that lurked in the shadows. With each step further into the tunnel of terror, the oppressive atmosphere seemed to press down on the adventurers like a leaden weight, threatening to crush both their bodies and their spirits. The air grew colder, carrying with it a biting chill that seemed to penetrate their very bones, leaving them trembling in its icy grasp. Their flashlights, once beacons of comfort, now wavered and sputtered, casting erratic beams of light that danced like phantoms across the decaying walls. The shadows they cast seemed to twist and contort, taking on grotesque shapes that seemed to mock the frailty of human perception. The adventurers clung to their light sources like lifelines, the beams their only defense against the encroaching darkness. The whispers that had been mere echoes now swirled around them like a maddening tempest, their voices overlapping and intertwining in a dissonant cacophony that seemed to reverberate within the very fabric of their minds. It was as if the tunnel itself had become a living entity, a sentient force that sought to penetrate their thoughts and exploit their deepest fears. Their footsteps echoed like drumbeats, the rhythm of their progress strangely synchronized with the erratic beats of their hearts. Every sound, every movement took on a heightened significance, a symphony of unease that heightened their senses to a fever pitch. They felt as if they were no longer alone in the tunnel, as if unseen eyes watched their every move, lurking just beyond the reach of their vision. Hallucinations began to play tricks on their minds, phantasmal figures that seemed to materialize and dissolve in the blink of an eye. The adventurers' gazes darted nervously, their eyes struggling to distinguish between illusion and reality. A fleeting glimpse of a spectral form here, an indistinct whisper carried on the wind as their grip on sanity grew increasingly tenuous. Despite their growing panic, a perverse curiosity drove them to continue deeper into the abyss. Their fear had become a dark magnet, drawing them further into the heart of the tunnel's mysteries. It was as if the tunnel itself held them in its thrall, its malevolent influence seeping into their thoughts and fanning the flames of their obsession. Their sense of time began to unravel, minutes stretching into hours as they traversed the seemingly endless expanse of the tunnel. The walls, once defined and solid, now seemed to shift and warp, as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling before their eyes. The adventurers stumbled and faltered, their movements unsteady as they navigated the disorienting labyrinth. The air grew heavier, laden with a palpable sense of foreboding that settled like a shroud over their shoulders. It was as if the tunnel itself was alive, a sentient entity that fed off their fear and despair. Their minds were a battlefield, torn between the impulse to flee and the compulsion to unravel the enigma that held them captive. Yet, even in the midst of their descent into madness, a stubborn resilience burned within them. They clung to one another, their collective willpower a fragile shield against the onslaught of terror that assailed them from all sides. Their determination to conquer the tunnel's darkness was a flame that refused to be extinguished, a defiant spark that defied the very depths of their own fears. As they pressed on, each step became a testament to their tenacity, a proclamation that they would not be defeated by the malevolent forces that sought to break them. The tunnel, a crucible of their anxieties and a crucible of their strengths, had become a battleground where the boundaries of reality blurred and the line between sanity and madness grew perilously thin. Frantic and disoriented, the adventurers turned to retrace their steps, their once confident strides now reduced to stumbling, desperate movements. The tunnel seemed to stretch endlessly before them, its walls closing in like the jaws of some monstrous beast, intent on swallowing them whole. Panic clawed at their chests, its icy grip threatening to choke the very breath from their lungs. Their flashlights, the last vestiges of their dwindling courage, flickered and sputtered, casting feeble glimmers of light that barely pierced the suffocating darkness. Each faltering step felt like an eternity, the tunnel's depths an inescapable abyss that seemed to mock their attempts to break free. They called out to one another, their voices trembling with a mixture of fear and desperation, their pleas echoing off the walls in a haunting chorus of futility. The whispers, once distant and unsettling, now seemed to close in around them, a maddening symphony of voices that reverberated within their minds like a relentless drumbeat. The words were no longer mere fragments, they had coalesced into sinister promises and dire warnings, as if the tunnel itself was taunting them with its secrets, tantalizingly out of reach. Their footsteps echoed hollowly, the sound a constant reminder of their vulnerability in this nightmarish labyrinth. Every corner turned, every passage explored seemed to lead them deeper into the heart of their torment. They stumbled upon remnants of previous explorers, tattered clothing, discarded equipment, a chilling reminder that they were not the first to fall victim to the tunnel's malevolence. Their senses played cruel tricks on them, distorting their perceptions until the very walls seemed to shift and warp, closing in like a vice. Phantom figures danced at the periphery of their vision, their forms elusive and insubstantial, vanishing whenever they dared to look directly at them. The adventurers' sanity teetered on the brink, their minds a battlefield where reality and hallucination waged a relentless war. Exhausted and battered, they clung to the glimmer of hope that beckoned them from afar. A faint pinprick of light pierced the darkness, a beacon that offered a promise of escape from the suffocating embrace of the tunnel. With every ounce of strength they could muster, they pushed forward, driven by an instinctual need to break free from the nightmarish grip that had ensnared them. Their bodies ached, their muscles screamed in protest, but the allure of freedom propelled them onward. The distance to the light seemed to shrink agonizingly slowly, the tunnel's malevolent influence attempting to pull them back into its clutches. Each step was a battle against an unseen force, a struggle to defy the odds and emerge from the abyss triumphant. Finally, they burst forth from the tunnel's oppressive grasp, their bodies bathed in the glorious embrace of daylight. Gasping for air, their lungs burned as they drank in the fresh, untainted atmosphere. The forest that greeted them was transformed, the fog had lifted, the trees stood tall and serene, and the sounds of nature seemed to celebrate their escape. Collapsed on the ground, their bodies trembling from the ordeal, the adventurers had emerged from the tunnel, forever changed by their harrowing experience. The tunnel's malevolent power had tested their limits, pushing them to the brink of their sanity and challenging their very essence. They had paid a steep price for their curiosity, their minds forever scarred by the horrors they had endured. In the aftermath, the adventurers faced an uncertain future. The tunnel's grasp had not truly released them, its spectral influence lingered in their thoughts, a constant reminder of the thin line that separates reality from nightmare. Their escape was a testament to their resilience, a hard-fought victory against the forces that sought to break them. And so, the Tunnel of Terror stood as a chilling testament to the indomitable spirit of those who dared to venture into its depths, a reminder that some horrors are not confined to the realm of fiction. Its darkness would forever haunt their memories, a twisted echo of the boundary between fear and survival, between the known and the unknowable.